In any case, going to head to the sauna now. I've been rambling a lot. This is going to be a long video. I hope you guys listen. I really hope you guys listen. I'm going to do 10 presses with the lighter kettlebell on the other. So, new microphone setup. It's this thing that's on my shirt. Hopefully it's recording pretty well. Don't have to hold anything. My movement's not restricted. Feels like the old days. And I say the old days because from episode around 20 or 30, I had a wireless mic that I would record my audio into. But then there was some issues regarding that, but now I have a new one. So let's see how today's video ends up sounding. Starting off today's workout with some alternate pull downs. So decided to come to the gym today since, well, yesterday I was at the park, and today the weather is, warm but cloudy, and I prefer it when the sun's out. So also at the gym there's a lot more options of things I can do. So I'm at the gym. In today's outro, I think I'm going to talk a little bit about the structure of my workouts and how I plan. Well, I don't necessarily plan my workouts, but I also don't necessarily not plan them. And I'll explain what all of that means at the end. But as far as the weight training portion of today's workout, starting off with alternate lat pull downs with the cables, and also going to do kettlebell hold shoulder presses. All of that looks like this. So with the pull downs, when I hold the the cables, I lean a little bit forward on each rep, and then I come down, and then I lean forward, come down. That slight lean forward at the bottom of each rep exaggerates the stretch of the lats just a little, which allows you to get more out of the movement, and also takes your lats through the full range of motion, which will end up preserving mobility. It feels like a lot of people end up staying really rigid and tight during their exercises and don't necessarily take their hands through the full range of motion, which in turn, in the long run, might give them like good muscle growth or whatever just from handling resistance, but since they don't really expose their body to the full range of motion, they end up losing some mobility over time and end up moving in a very blocky and rigid way. I like flowing with the weight a little so that I get a full stretch and able to preserve more mobility and also get a more flowy physique where the lats seems to connect into the hips really well, into the abs, and gives a really good look in my opinion. Supersetting that with kettlebell hold shoulder presses. I'm going to hold the kettlebell or a heavy kettlebell in one hand, and then I'm going to do 10 presses with the lighter kettlebell on the other. Holding the heavy kettlebell on one side forces your core to stay engaged while having to press the other kettlebell. Also, it increases the total load experienced by your body during the movement, which I believe results in higher growth hormone release, which leads to better muscle growth and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna do this for 5 sets and then on to something else. So moving into the next set of exercises. With a landmine, I'm going to do a staggered squat thruster and deadlifts with the kettlebells. A suitcase deadlift with the kettlebell while holding a lighter kettlebell in clean or rack position. One of the ways I think about picking exercises when I'm working out is I'm trying to incorporate as many body parts at the same time as possible, and also trying to have my body experience the most load possible. I'm thinking, so the way I'm really thinking about things is I need to train movements, and I also need to do things where there is a large growth hormone response from my body. And some of the ways to increase growth hormone response is to increase the number of muscle groups involved in a movement and to maximize the total weight experienced by your body. So, for example, here I could just do a shoulder press, but by making it a thruster, I'm also involving the legs and the core by having the offset load. But yeah, let's just get to the movements. I'll explain it a little bit more later. So, holding the landmine and getting into a staggered position, it's also called the B stance. Then I'm going to squat down and press at the same time. Going for 6 each side. Also, another thing that happens when you start utilizing multiple muscle groups at the same time, you start learning how to use your body as a unit. The ability to transfer force and momentum from what's generated at the legs into the shoulders with this particular exercise. Moving into the suitcase deadlift. So I'm going to hold one kettlebell in rack position, and then suitcase deadlift. So here there is a core compensation going on that gets your abs, lower back, and obliques involved. And also by having the additional 25 for not too much additional effort, I'm able to increase the total volume experienced by my body. For not too much added effort. So it's what I mean by that is it's not too much added effort to hold a 25-pound kettlebell or lighter, but the response that it creates as a result of having it in that place is a lot more than if it weren't. Like, you get to involve a lot more muscle groups versus if you weren't holding a kettlebell. The way I think about my workouts more so is I'm trying to train movements and involve a variety of different muscle groups so that I get better at utilizing my body as a system rather than isolating like chest, back, or even push-pull. Like, if you do a push-pull, there are some movements that you can do a push and a pull at the same time. And by having this rigid concept of a split, you start excluding certain movements which otherwise your body can do. And maybe if you train pull and push differently separately, you don't necessarily lose those capabilities, but then when it does come time to do a push and a pull at the same time, your system is not like well acclimated to it. Like, it's not your body, like, it's not a skill that your body is particularly good at yet. So for example, if you see people who punch and stuff, they pull one hand in and push out with the other. So there is something to be said for generating that force while coiling one side and pushing the other side. And without necessarily training that in the gym, you don't necessarily get the outcomes that you would get if you included them otherwise. I hope this makes sense. I'm kind of rambling. I'm not quite sure how to put what I'm trying to say in words, which is why I'm kind of pausing and stuff. But yeah, in any case, I'm going to do this for a bit. So moving into the next set of movements. So another thing that I try to optimize for is, well, utilizing the whole body as a unit. Well, I think I've mentioned that a few times. So what I mean by utilizing the whole body as a unit is, like, the best example I can use is gymnasts and Olympic weightlifters. With Olympic weightlifting, they start from the ground. They do like a deadlift sort of motion, bring it to the waist, thrust with the hips, row, then squat at the same time to get the bar to above their clavicles, and then with the upward motion do a jerk, or if they're doing a snatch, they go straight overhead. If with most of these people, if you take their clean and jerk or snatch max, they wouldn't be able to strict shoulder press it, but yet they're able to get it above their heads and do so in a very rhythmic, very fluid way. Same with like certain gymnastic movements, to where getting to certain positions, if you were trying to do it strictly, it's not possible, but by using leg swaying movements and stuff like that, they're able to get into the positions necessary to perform certain actions. So with kettlebell juggling, or like kettlebell cleans and snatches, I'm able to do that or get stimulus like that without necessarily having to learn Olympic weightlifting. The learning curve uh, for doing kettlebell cleans and snatches and things like that is a lot lesser than Olympic weightlifting. Though that being said, with my strength levels now, I can do some level of Olympic weightlifting. But then this is where another thing that I'm trying to optimize for comes into play, which is unilateral stuff. So Olympic weightlifting is very bilateral in nature. So using the barbell, holding both hands at the same time, etc., etc., etc. But when using the kettlebell, I'm usually able to focus on one side and then move weight from one side to the other, and stuff like that, to where I'm able to very unilaterally focus on my body. And another thing you'll notice about Olympic weightlifters is they don't necessarily have a traditional push-pull split or anything. They pretty much just keep drilling the form of the movement, rather than trying to exclusively strengthen one body part. They're more so trying to practice the form, learn the movement, more so than get stronger. By getting better at the movement or learning the form better, they get better at lifting heavier weights overall. So all of that being said, for the next set of movements, what I'm doing is a kettlebell clean to figure 8 with a flip. I'm using a heavy kettlebell. This exercise appeared a few videos ago, or yesterday even. Was it yesterday? Maybe yesterday. But since I have the heavy kettlebell with me, which I don't get to use often, I'm going to use it here. And that looks like this. So yeah, there I'm moving very fluidly. Some part of that movement involves my legs, some part of that involves my shoulders. I'm also having to bend using my biceps a little, etc., etc., etc. So that's what I mean by utilizing your whole body as a unit without necessarily having to think about what muscles are working. Some of the people with the most impressive physiques, like calisthenic athletes and stuff like that, also do a lot of the same body part multiple times in a week. I don't necessarily subscribe to this notion that if you target one body part one day, you can't do it the next day. I instead think about it as, just use your body, push the limits, work out what you can, and then on to the next day. Supersetting that with Landmine Suitcase deadlifts. Here again, unilateral movement where I'm able to focus on one side at a time, forcing the opposing side core to work, doing a superset to make my heart rate race. Making my heart rate race, utilizing the whole body as a unit, utilizing big muscle groups, forcing higher growth hormone release, utilizing heavy enough weight to be taxing. That doesn't mean all the other exercises don't have their places. Sometimes you do need to isolate to even out imbalances and stuff. But I think if just in general you utilize your body as a unit, your body, and do a lot of unilateral focused work, you should have very few to little to no imbalances. And yeah, I feel like I'm pausing a lot today while talking. I'm not really able to put what I want to say in words, but hopefully all of this is making sense. So, decided to end off with some, well, I'm going to do abs and some mobility, but before that, since my shoulder's feeling good and I haven't juggled the heavy kettlebell in a while, I'm going to do that. But, so here's the other thing that I think about when I'm working out. I'm not someone who particularly enjoys every kind of working out. So one of the ways you can keep things interesting is by making different kinds of goals or to do things that are fun for you. So some people, to stay in shape, they play pickup basketball or go play football or soccer, whatever you want to call it, because it forces them to run up and down the field or the court, jump, etc. But since they're having fun doing it, it doesn't feel like a chore. So when I'm doing my workouts, I'm trying to split them up in a way where I don't necessarily feel like it's redundant. It's still interesting. It still keeps me mentally engaged. And recently, as of 4 months ago now, I think, I picked up kettlebell juggling, which has been fun for me, which allows me to keep things interesting. I have to learn different kinds of flips, different kinds of moves, etc., etc., etc. Then another thing that I think about is total calories burnt. I try to burn 1,200 calories almost every day, at least. Sometimes it goes up to 2,000 depending on how hard my workout is and how long I'm working out, but at least 1,000, but on average 1,200. And kettlebell juggling allows me to do that too because I'm moving a lot of weight continuously throughout my whole body, which increases my heart rate, which lets me accomplish that goal, which allows me to stay lean too because I get a cardiovascular aspect out of it. So all of this being said, it doesn't mean, I remember at the beginning of the video I was going to talk about splitting my workouts at the end, but it seems like I've been talking about it throughout my workout, so I guess it is what it is. But that doesn't mean don't do your dumbbell presses, don't do your bench presses, don't do your rows or whatever. But what I'm saying is do all of it. I have somewhat of a mental track of like, okay, have I done like a dumbbell or like bodybuilding style chest movement at least 2 or 3 times in the week? If I have done that, then everything else is fair game. Same thing with back. Have I done a couple of pull downs? Have I done some pull-ups? Stuff like that. If I've done that, then anything else is kind of fair game. Because when I'm doing all this working your body as a unit style exercises, all those muscles get worked. But then by also throwing in the bodybuilding style exercises, I'm able to shape them in the way that I see fit. And yeah, and at least it's been working for me. Like, I don't know, this recipe might not work for everybody, but it is working for me. And I used to do a bodybuilding split. I used to even do competitive powerlifting, but all of that stuff became redundant. It wasn't fun anymore. Didn't make, like, even though I still made it to the gym, I started dreading every day. Sometimes I still dread some days, but it's way more interesting, and the likelihood of me feeling that way. Like, and even if I feel that way because of all the different kinds of things that I'm into, like I'm into mobility, I'm into kettlebell juggling, I'm into bodybuilding, I'm into cardio, I'm into the sauna, I'm into calisthenics, and because of all these different aspects that I'm into, if I feel tired of any aspect, there's at least two aspects that I feel fresh or feel like I'm not dreading, if that makes sense. And it keeps things interesting, etc., etc., etc. In any case, gonna do some heavy kettlebell juggling. This is a 28 kg, 62-pound kettlebell. So yeah, throwing this stuff around requires a lot of explosive and muscular force. If you're telling me this stuff doesn't build muscle, I don't believe it. Your body has to utilize itself as a unit, move from side to side, and like my heart rate's racing just from that short burst. So yeah, these are the kinds that I think about when I'm lifting or working out, and which is the reason why I work out this way. But yeah, let's record some more kettlebell freestyle with the heavy kettlebell. It's extremely taxing with the heavy kettlebell, but like the amount of explosiveness this has to build for you has probably got to be out of the chart, because I mean, you're literally throwing around 62 pounds, flipping it around. I don't know. And like Olympic weightlifters, they're able to just toss hundreds of pounds around, and they look relatively small. Like, the amount of weight your body can handle and move around, if it is used as a unit, is tremendous. And by focusing, or by being trapped in that mold of, oh, I'm just training chest today, or I'm just training back today, I think leaves a lot on the table that otherwise you wouldn't be able to work on. You also restrict your exercise choices so much that, there is, like, let's say you want to specialize at something. Yes, you want to restrict your like, for example, if, I don't know, you want to be the best deadlifter in the world, maybe some of this stuff doesn't make sense, And maybe in that case, yeah, you want to do everything to specialize at the deadlift. But if you're someone who's just looking to have a good physique but also be able to move, like what's the point of having a good physique if you can't like move freely, if you feel rigid, if you feel tight all the time? And that is kind of another thing that I think about, is trying not to be rigid, not trying to think about it like break dancers are super strong and they're able to move their bodies in such weird ways and have great physiques too. So that's kind of the thing that way I think about things, is there are other people outside of bodybuilders that have great physiques, and what seems to be common between them is they utilize their whole body as a unit. And so like calisthenics, gymnastics, Olympic weightlifting, etc., etc., etc. All those people have great physiques, but the commonality is they utilize their body as a unit. And then to add to that component, maximizing the amount of weight that you lift within a workout by doing things like the sled, or within a week by utilizing the things like the sled, where you can recover day to day much faster, but you can overload the volume. And as a result, your body experiences a lot more total volume over a week, rather than if you do a lot of chest one day, then you might not necessarily feel like doing any movement that involves the chest the next day, etc., etc., etc. I feel like I'm ranting a lot in today's video, but yeah, some more freestyle. That's a movement, or that's a flip with this that I've never tried, and is actually quite hard, but I feel a lot more confident. So here's the other thing. Olympic weightlifters practice their form a lot and then go for heavier weights. Think of it almost as like shooting a basketball. You shoot the basketball a lot from closer distances to get your form right. And then if you're able to perfect your form, then the farther away you go and retain that form, you retain your accuracy too. So that's kind of what's going on here, is since I've been juggling the light kettlebell a lot, or not a lighter kettlebell a lot, I'm able to like transfer that knowledge, or that my body has knowledge and coordination, into the heavy kettlebell. Oh, man, that's hard. But yeah, maybe gonna do some more of this, and then on to some abs and mobility. So moving into some abs. So this is an example of where throughout the workout I did unilateral stuff, did some kettlebell juggling, etc., etc., etc. A lot of movements in which the core is involved to keep things tight, to maintain balance, to throw the kettlebell around, etc., etc., etc. However, I also do ab focus stuff, so just regular sit-ups like this, or other variations of this. And so again, it's a capability of the body to perform this, which is to just simply sit up. It's not utilizing your whole body as a unit. It's a pretty focused ab exercise. There's not a whole lot of load involved, etc., etc. So it doesn't fit the mold of everything else that I was talking about. But one of the other things that I mentioned was I do throw focused work in, because focused work, but what I mean by focused work is just like regular bicep curls, regular dumbbell presses, stuff like that. That is, and because that is a capability of the body to do those kinds of things, which is like slow descent, explosive come up, slow descent, fast concentric, slow descent, fast concentric. You also have super slow descent, super slow concentric, so on and so forth. All of these are different capabilities of the body. I'm into working every capability of the body, is what it comes down to. Not just the utilizing the whole body as a unit, not just the kettlebell juggling, not just lifting weights, but running, not just sprinting, but running long distances. It's like, and not just running, being able to walk long distances, being able to walk fast, being able to walk while dragging stuff around. Do isometrics to be able to hold things in place. So like when I'm holding a kettlebell in rack position, so like while I was doing the suitcase deadlift, one side was holding it. That's an isometric. When I'm holding something in place, that's an isometric. When I'm doing alternate dumbbell presses or alternate pull downs and stuff, one hand is doing an isometric while the other hand is doing an eccentric and concentric. So that's what I'm into. What I'm really into is, or what I've come to discover over all my years lifting and working out, is that the more you try to over specialize at something, the more likely you are to develop imbalances and or lose capabilities of your body. So like if you're only into running long distances, then you start losing the ability to like explode. Like it doesn't feel like, I used to run a lot of long distance, and then when I went into sprints, it just didn't feel like I was good at it, if that makes sense. And even with that, like if you notice basketball players, right, they do a lot of like running up and down the court, so they get to move in so many different directions, but they're not doing one same motion for a really long time. So that is another capability to think of, where when you're running long distances, you're moving straight or the same kind of motion for a really long time. You're not necessarily moving laterally or backwards. You're getting really good at moving forwards, but you're not really good at like that stop, turn, pivot kind of motion that comes with training basketball. But in that same vein, basketball players may not necessarily be great at just moving one way for a really long time if all they do is train basketball. So that is the way I think about training. Now, that being said, if I'm focusing towards a certain goal, now let's say I wanted to be a competitive powerlifter again, then I would have to change my training such that I focus a little bit more towards deadlifts and squats, or like barbell squats and stuff. So like right now I don't do a whole lot of back squatting, and as a result of which the stimulus of having a bar on my back isn't something that I'm familiar with at the moment. So if I try to enter, like, although my legs might be getting really strong now from all the different exercises that I'm doing, my body won't necessarily be able to put together the heaviest back squat it's ever done right off the bat, because, or it can do right off the bat, because my shoulders, traps and stuff, my spine isn't really conditioned to be holding a barbell with that much weight on its shoulders. So with each kind of activity that you're trying to perform, it comes with its own set of adaptations. You can choose to specialize at something if you want, but there is a lot to be said for opening your mind to a wider variety of exercises. So for example, NFL players are really strong. They might be genetically gifted, but they're also incredibly strong at regular lifting. They do a variety of different exercises. They do Olympic weightlifting, they do regular squats, they do bench, etc., etc., etc. They have endurance, they are able to explode. So it doesn't mean that training one way doesn't translate into all these other things. Like, even though I haven't done a regular conventional deadlift in so long, I can go back to doing like a hex bar or a conventional deadlift and pull 405 no warm-up, which I've done here and there when people are deadlifting just for the fun of it. But I've never really focused on barbell or hex bar deadlifts like that. But still, because of all these other exercises that I'm doing that work the same muscles involved in that movement, I don't necessarily have to focus on it exclusively. To strengthen myself or to build the muscle, etc. So what I'm trying to say is, I think with a lot of like fitness YouTube and all of that, like when you start listening to everybody and the studies that everybody is publishing, and 8 to 12 reps, 20 reps, 30 reps, etc., 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 I think people lose sight of the big picture of what's actually going on. Your body is trying to adapt to make yourself strong enough to the stimulus that you're trying to present it. It is also pretty infinitely adaptable in the sense that there are people with really crazy mobility who are not that strong. There are people like breakdancer, like who are strong, but like not like weightlifting strong, like more calisthenic strong. And there are like strongman athletes who might be strong at like weightlift, like all the strongman stuff, but might not necessarily be able to do muscle ups. And I guess the point I was trying to make there is that they're both capable, like both being like a strongman and both being like a breakdancer are both capabilities possessed by your body. And if you don't have any necessity to specialize in one or the other, and you throw in a little bit of each kind of training in your workouts and not necessarily exclude anything, I feel like you can preserve quite a bit and even build up to like very crazy capabilities if you do that kind of stuff. Like, I don't program my workouts, but when I work out, I'm thinking about it more so as, okay, I need to do a little bit of mobility work, I need to do a little bit of bodybuilding work, I need to do a little bit of kettlebell juggling work. I need to do a little bit of balance work, etc., etc., etc. And then I try to fit all of that in within a week. Little bits of it every day. And then by the end of the week, I've done a significant enough volume of all of these things that quite often translate from one like, so like if you do strongman kind of stuff, it translates to like strongman kind of stuff. Example would be heavy sled. It also translates to heavy squats, which is both strongman and powerlifting and bodybuilding, or all three. So yeah, I hope all of this is making sense. If you have any questions about what I'm rambling about, leave it in the comments. Yeah. So, gonna keep repping out abs or the sit-ups for a little bit, then head to the sauna. Speaking of the sauna, temperature regulation, your body's ability to temperature regulate, dealing with cold weather or cold in general, hot weather, sauna, etc., is also another capability that your body possesses. If you don't train it, your body becomes bad at it. So pretty much the idea is to stress your body out in manageable amounts in all its different kinds of capabilities. It leads to different kinds of gains. Oftentimes there's carryover effects. So for example, if you sit in the sauna, it increases blood oxygen level, or your hemoglobin levels, from what I understand, in your blood, which increases its ability to hold on to oxygen, which then gives you better cardiovascular capability. It also makes you better at sweating, which is good for temperature regulation. But the ability to temperature regulate and sweat makes you, I guess, able to run longer distances in the heat. So yeah, that's what I mean by when you train one capability or one form of stressor, it usually has some sort of carryover effect into something else. So if you think that training all these different things doesn't have any kind of is just a waste of time, I think it's wrong. I think there are carryover effects from training all these different kinds of capabilities. It usually has a carryover effect into other aspects of what your body is capable of. In any case, going to head to the sauna now. I've been rambling a lot. This is going to be a long video. I hope you guys listen. I really hope you guys listen. So, spent 20 minutes in the sauna, and then took a shower, changed, and now I'm here. But to put it all together, the way I think about my workouts and the way I structure things is, so usually within a day I start off with some pretty, I want some sort of intense component within every workout, unless it's a complete mobility day, or if I'm feeling overly taxed. So I'll do like heavy sleds or heavy squats of some sort, like Landmine or whichever else. And then I do supersets to keep my heart rate elevated, to have a cardiovascular and cardio burn effect. That's one of the things. And then the other thing is just thinking about all the different movements that the body is capable of. Can it move laterally? Can it move forward? Can it move backward? Can I rotate my arms? Can I rotate up and around my head? And so it can do all these things. All right, now how do I apply resistance to those things? And by applying resistance to these various movements, the muscles have to become stronger, which essentially means become a little bigger or whatever, in order to facilitate those movements under load. Over time, you increase that load and you get bigger. Then the other thing that your body does is, it's the amount of growth hormone that it releases is directly proportional to the number of muscle groups used at once, usually, which is why they say all the best muscle building movements are compound movements. And the other thing is how much load is your body experiencing during the workout. So, what I mean by that is a body that is capable of handling 1,000 pounds has to be thicker, has to be bigger, right? Like if you applied 1,000 pounds on a twig, it would crack. But if you applied 1,000 pounds on something that is dense, it wouldn't crack. It would be able to hold its place, if that makes sense. So it either has to be a lot of twigs, or it has to be something that's extremely dense. And um, yeah, and if you're able, and if you apply constant heavy load, or are able to maximize the amount of load that your body experiences and gradually increase it over time, I believe your body releases the appropriate amount of, or whatever amount of growth hormone that you're, I guess, genetically predispositioned to, in order to adapt to that, in order to adapt to that capability, or in order to adapt to that stimulus that you're providing. And so by doing a lot of sled movement, because it only involves concentric, you can recover a lot from. I'm able to have my body experience a lot of heavy load within a week, and as a result I think it maximizes my growth hormone release. And also while doing like suitcase deadlifts and stuff like that, by holding another kettlebell or something, again it increases the number of muscle groups at play, and also the total amount of load experienced by the body within the workout, and as a result within the week. I'm not a huge believer in splitting up different body parts, or even different kind of like push, pull, or whatever, because if you just have a push day, what about movements that in which you do push and pull together? What about a movement in which you have to do uh, like legs and a push together, like a thruster? So instead of thinking about it that way, also, let's say you were in the wild and an animal was chasing you, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I had leg day yesterday, I'm not going to run today." So your body is not meant to be isolated or like that. It's a good, I guess, way to be able to program your workouts and stuff. But I don't know. That recipe isn't necessarily what I like. But yeah, before I head home or go grab the bus, I'm going to do a little posing session. Not looking bad. And yeah, so pretty much whatever I'm doing seems to be working, at least for me. I don't know if that's the best lighting. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, physique not looking too bad. This video is going to be pretty long. Hope you guys listen, and if you have any questions or comments about it, good or bad, leave it in the comments, and yeah, let's have a discussion about it. That's all for today's video. See you all tomorrow.